Hi everyone, I'm Superintendent Scott Munson of the Marshall Public School District. I'm glad to have a couple of guests with me today on Tiger Talk TV. And we're going to talk about a pretty important topic, one that we've heard more about in the school district probably in the last 5 or 6 years, and that's career and college readiness and specifically career pathways. So I'd like to welcome Brian Jones and Chad Pederson to the show today. And guys, to start out with, Chad, we'll start with you. If you can just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role in the school district, that'd be great.
Sure. Name's Chad Pederson, like Mr. Munson said. I'm an assistant principal for Marshall Public Schools. I'm seated at Maytech, and we have a lot of college and career readiness going on over there, and that's probably why I was invited.
Absolutely.
Brian Jones, high school principal at Marshall High School, and also serving and servicing the students at Maytech as well.
Super. So again, I appreciate both of you being here. Like I said in the intro, we've heard a lot more about career and college readiness in the past however many years. Let's talk about career readiness just in general and why that's become more important statewide, nationwide, and certainly in our district. And you guys can just kind of answer however you'd like.
Sure. I think one of the big factors with regards to career readiness is the number of graduates, both from high school and college, that are coming out into the workforce, that the employers in the United States don't feel like those kids have the skills ready to jump right in and be a contributor to their organization. Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about last episode, we talked about the amount of student debt that has come up. And so it's really just trying to help students understand and know what careers are available. Mm-hmm. I think in our region of the state, that's really important in terms of trying to keep more of our students and graduates in the region of Southwest Minnesota. Yep. A lot of times we see where kids want to leave right away and go experience other parts, head to the cities, but just trying to let them know what's available in Southwest Minnesota. And our young people are our greatest resource. And as we see more and more baby boomers retiring, we need our young people to step up and fill those jobs and those careers. And so, and I think that's in all of greater Minnesota. And so you see some legislation that's put in place. We've got some legislation that requires some career planning with our 8th graders at Marshall Middle School. And how that transfers both to the high school and also to Maytech. And specifically, I would say in 2 ways. One, through our graduation requirement of a careers class. Yep. And we've had that in place since 2005, a local graduation requirement that all juniors are required to earn a half a credit in a careers class. They look at multiple careers. They look at the education required. They look at the earnings potential in that career, to try to help give them some insight as they transition from high school to the workforce or post-secondary education. The other thing that we've done in Marshall Public Schools is our ramp up to readiness. Yep. So we dedicate time each week, 30 minutes, beginning in grade 9 all the way through grade 12 for career and college readiness and preparation. Mm-hmm. And so those are 2 things we've done, and then we'll talk a little later about some specific programming.
Chad, anything to add? Yeah,
I really think that the college and career readiness really connects our students with some of the soft skills that they need to take out of high school that they learn that's not in the hard curriculum. Time management, decision making, problem solving, organization, team working, just a lot of skills they pick up, in their normal classes that they don't think of as a skill that they need to take out that employers are looking for.
And I'll add 2 things. One would be the world's best workforce that we've had in place now for several years, and career and college readiness being one of the goal areas of the world's best workforce that every public school district has, including in Marshall here. And Brian, you referenced it a little bit. I know even in 8th grade, I believe, it might even be in 7th grade, our middle school students complete a career interest survey where they start thinking about and talking about careers, and then obviously that lends itself well to the transition to high school. So a lot of different reasons for it, but definitely something that we've seen more of an emphasis on. I think we've always seen the college readiness emphasis, but now we're seeing the career and college readiness efforts. So that's good. Chad, I'm going to start with you. When we think about career pathways and career readiness at Maytech, what are a couple of the things happening there that students have an opportunity to be a part of?
And students have an opportunity to be part of welding and obtaining a certified nursing assistant certification at Maytech through a couple of programs we have there. You want me to further explain?
Yeah, let's start with the welding. What does that mean? I know what that means, but obviously a lot of our viewers don't.
Well, welding is run in conjunction with Minnesota West Community College. It's a 16-credit program. It is for high school students to come on over to Maytech. It also has some adult students that come in. It's a 16-credit program. It's really hands-on. It's taught by a certified Minnesota West welding instructor, which is really nice. And students learn, shop safety, which is really important with welding. They learn blueprint reading, part of welding. Then they learn MIG, TIG, stick welding, which are really important skills, team working. And so it's really hands-on so that they really learn how to control that heat and the speed of that weld. So when it is finished and accomplished, it's a solid weld. And so an employer can count on that weld was done with quality results for their customers, and it's just a really nice program.
And when you talk about 16 credits, Chad, what do you mean exactly?
Well, there's like 3 different courses throughout the years that they go through, and there are 3-hour classes with the instructor, and so in a course of about a school year, they can earn that certification that says that they went through Minnesota West and have this. They can move that certificate on into get a AA degree in welding.
So it gives them a leg up on.
It gives them a leg up,
advancing
and they can go in with
West.
that certificate and start a welding job. Say, here, I'm a certified welder. I can take the welding test at an entry-level welding position and go back to school. I mean, so it's really really provides good opportunity for people.
If we talk about that welding test, and then they move on once they complete our program. They move on, and in many cases, they'll go up to Minnesota West at Granite Falls and pass that. If they pass that test, now they take that certificate out to those employers. And we know welding is one of the really high-demand jobs that exist in Southwest Minnesota, and we've got students who have put that to work and are making a good living right now doing that.
And that's a good point to make, Brian, and you touched on it in the Marshall area as well as our region of Southwest Minnesota. There are a lot of job opportunities that are well-paying where graduates from either Maytech or the high school can earn a living, support a family, start a career, do whatever they want to, and that's a good example of where the welding kind of gives them that foot in the door, start of looking at those opportunities. And I know we had to do a lot of work at Maytech to get the shop ready for that, but I feel like it's been a good investment. Chad, you touched on it that we're also involving adults in those classes in conjunction with adult basic education through Marshall Community Services and everything. And that's been a nice partnership because at times we're not able to get that critical mass of 10 or 12 high school or Maytech students in a class, but we might have 4 or 5 adults to supplement it. And it also, I think, and you can speak to this, both of you can much more eloquently than I can, but adults working side by side in a welding class with high school kids is a good experience for both of them, I would think.
Yeah, schools are the only place where we segregate by age. When you go out into the workforce, we work with people from 20 years younger to 20 years older, so it's good skill building and learning how to deal with the generational gap, especially with cell phones and technology. Somebody 20 years older than you, they have a lot different skill level than that, and so it's a real good teaming opportunity to learn those skills.
Those adults can help mentor our young people in that work environment and maybe hear some of those messages reinforced other than a school person or mom and dad. And we all remember our teenage years that we probably thought we were a lot smarter than what mom and dad maybe gave us credit for, or what we gave them credit for being probably.
That's a good point. Okay, let's transition a little bit to the CNA and opportunities that again, adults and students from the high school and Maytech have, whichever one of you would like to share a little bit of information about that.
I can start. Well, that, again, is shared with Minnesota West Community College. It's a 3-credit program. There's 56 hours of formal classroom skills that they have to work on, pass, and be competent in things like CPR and transfers and lifts with technique with, people in wheelchair or that are in bed. They learn personal care, and personal hygiene, helping someone to clean their dentures or to wash or comb their hair. Pretty important, service that we provide some of our older generation. And there's also that comfort care, bringing them in a blanket when they're cold, and just that human contact with a relationship with someone to talk to. So it's a pretty important program, and students in there, they learn that, and they're learning hands-on, and as part of that program, they have to go out and spend 24 hours in a nursing care facility. And so it's pretty nice, and when they complete it, then they can go take their test to get that certification, and they can work in any, medical hospital, nursing home, but they can also work in a home health environment and go out and help people with personal care. So it's a great opportunity, and you mentioned before the number of welders that you just needed in Southwest Minnesota. It's the same thing with students with the CNA sort of. They're needed all over. My wife's a physical therapist, and they're always looking for more CNA certified people.
As our population ages, people are living longer, and one of the biggest benefits that I've seen for our kids is for those students who are out working in those environments, the amount of empathy that they have learned and developed, and you can't put a price tag and a measure on that skill, but what a great life skill for those students to have.
And I would think that it's almost impossible to simulate that experience unless they're doing the mini internship or the externship somewhere where they are interacting with those folks and understanding what their life is like and how they can help them. Do you guys have some success stories, not necessarily naming names, but just of some students who have gone from either the welding program or the CNA and how that's opened some doors career-wise or job-wise for them that we can share?
I think about the CNA program and for those students who desire to pursue a career in the medical field. What a great entry-level experience where they earn a salary that pays better than any other part-time high school job has, but they're really gaining that experience. What I think gives them a leg up when they go into those and try to get into those competitive medical schools. It gives our kids an experience that others perhaps don't have, and just I feel like it really helps put them ahead of the curve. And so a number of students who have gone on to a variety of careers in medicine. I think about some of our language learners, some of our students that are relatively new to the United States and Marshall in particular, and how they've been able to gain some real valuable skills, marketable skills, and the ability to have in those medical environment, someone who's bilingual is such a benefit for those students, and to be able to help care for those our older population that don't speak English is just really critical as well.
I actually know one personally that the CNA led to a nursing position for her, and she said, that developed my interest in the medical field, getting to know people, the work environment. And they got to know nurses and knew what to expect when they got to go to college. And then when they were in college working in that CNA program, they could ask at, work to a nurse or a doctor coming by, I'm unclear about this topic or this thing. Could you explain that a little better for me? And it was really a good, very successful mission for that student.
Awesome.
I think with regards to welding, students who perhaps, I can think of 2 or 3 in just the past recent history who maybe didn't love school the way that we did, and that's why we went into education, but they found their passion in the welding, and it was like you saw this transformation because of seeing and those kids feeling like they're always being exposed for what they can't do well. Now they were in an environment where they could just shine, and they became leaders, and they were the ones who others came to for advice and know-how, and it was really just great to see their talents be able to shine, and how that's led to something that they love doing for a career.
And those stories are certainly part of the reason that we do what we do, and why we try to create opportunities like this. And again, we know that there are opportunities in welding and manufacturing and the medical field and nursing, and these certainly align really well with them. So we're gonna take just a short break to transition here. Chad has to go to another meeting, and then Brian and I are going to talk about a variety of other things related to career pathways. Chad, thanks for taking time to be here. Appreciate the information that you shared. So we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Munson. We're back with Brian Jones, the high school principal here in Marshall, and we're going to talk about some programs and opportunities that are a little more specific right now, kind of new, I would say.
Yep.
Brian, let's start with LIFT, and what does that stand for, and then talk a little bit about the grant that we've been trying to and gotten involved with.
Sure. So LIFT is a statewide program, stands for Launch Your Future Today.
Okay.
The legislature last biennium set aside some specific dollars, and there's some requirements that go with that. Schools need to partner with one another, which is kind of a relatively new concept, and then also partner with industry, and just trying to do more to expose students to some of those careers that are available while they're still in high school.
Mm-hmm. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this school year is our first year being involved in LIFT, formally anyways. I know we've looked into it. Tell us, the viewers, about some of the programs and opportunities that our students are able to get involved in now.
Sure. So we're participating with a couple of different LIFT grants that we're receiving. Again, this is seed money to start these programs, and part of it is they need to be sustainable to continue. The first program that our students at Marshall High School are working with is through a LIFT grant with the school districts from Lakeview, Yellow Medicine East, and Minneota.
Okay.
And that is working in a program for engineering, what I would consider engineering preparation.
Okay.
And we use a specific program called Project Lead the Way, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And so our students just started that in January, and we'll continue that into next year with some opportunities for those students to continue, as well as some opportunities for some additional students to get started.
Okay.
We're also participating in another LIFT program with the school districts of Tracy Milroy Ballatin, Westbrook Walnut Grove, Murray County Central, and Marshall, and that is for students wishing to pursue a career in aviation.
Okay. So let's talk about Project Lead the Way with those districts that you mentioned. What does that mean and look like for MHS students?
Sure. So Project Lead the Way is an engineering curriculum. It's been at Lakeview for a number of years. And the challenge is for high schools, when you start to get into these career-oriented fields, is just having a critical mass of numbers to be able to offer such specialized programming. And so what we've done is we have, I believe, 8 students who currently are participating. And so what it looks like for them is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they travel up to Lakeview for their morning class. So from 8 until about 9:15, they're on site with the teacher, with the Lakeview students, with students from Yellow Medicine East, and working together. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, before they return back to Marshall to attend the rest of the day with us. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, those students meet in our library, and they are working on assignments from that teacher who's communicating with them via Schoology, which is our digital learning platform. And also we've done some Skype meetings where they can Skype in and have a quick 5-minute meeting with that instructor if they have a question. He's teaching another class at that time. And so they're working really independently with that instructor to complete those assignments. When they return back on a Thursday, then they're printing using their 3D printers and whatnot from those assignments that they completed earlier.
What have you heard from the students so far, Brian? I know we had a really wacky January, February, and March with weather, but what's the feedback you've received from the Project Lead the Way pre-engineering students?
You know, we have a good group of students. So one, they're patient while we work through some of the challenges, and weather being the biggest one. But they're excited about what they're doing because they feel like it's relevant for what they want to do. And these are students who want to go on and go into the field of engineering. And so the particular class that they're working on right now really is a kind of an overview, an introductory class. They're doing computer-aided drafting. Primarily, it's an engineering principles. They've been able to take some field trips as well. Okay. And so they visited a manufacturing or an engineering type facility in each of the 4 communities. And so in Marshall was our very first one back in January. We went to Action Track Chair.
Sure.
They got a tour. They spent a lot of time with the designers, the engineers, and so it was pretty valuable. They've also been to Universal Forest Products in Minneota.
Okay.
They've been to Extreme Panel in Cottonwood.
Yep.
And then they have another one lined up in Granite Falls, and that particular tour is escaping my mind right now. But they've been able to just see, again, what's available in the region and what's the need. And all of these, on all these field trips, they've heard a consistent message is, we need people trained, we need employees. And the reality is, if our employers can't find the employees they need in this area, they might not stay in our region. And so it is important to train our kids, expose them to what these careers look like for possible consideration, so they can start to pursue that. And as someone who lives in Southwest Minnesota, we want our kids to know what's available here, so that they can, choose to start their career and raise a family and invest back into our communities within the region as a whole.
So let's transition into aviation, and I think you're in a unique position, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but you have a daughter who's doing this, and you also, obviously, there are other students. So talk a little bit about that program, and then again, what type of feedback have we gotten?
Each program is unique, and so the students in our previous program, the engineering, they're taking that for high school credit. And so that replaces one of their classes. The aviation program is structured differently, and so it occurs on Saturday mornings, and so they're not receiving high school credits. When we came together and talked about this, kind of the planning committee, we just decided that for the purpose of awarding high school credit, that it was going to be tough to get a teacher licensed, and so we made that decision. But we threw it out there to kids, and we've got there are I believe 3 or 4 students from Marshall. I think there's about a dozen students overall who are pursuing, and what they're doing in this particular program is they are working toward the very early stages, working towards their private pilot's license. And so one of the parts of that is you have to pass an FAA ground school test. And so that'll be really that first step that those students will experience. And along the way, they get an opportunity to go up, do a little flying with a flight instructor and gain a few hours. They get some simulator experience. And again, it's just those types of opportunities. It's tough in a high school to be able to expose kids to. But the benefits are they get to see, and how many times as teachers have we heard, when am I ever going to use this in terms of the content? Well, now they're getting in some experience to apply some of that knowledge that they've gained, and I just see where we get kids more engaged. And so these 2 programs, if we didn't have this LIFT grant from the legislature, this seed money, I don't know that we would have had these opportunities for our students. And so it's been exciting to see where it's gone and where it might go, and what else is out there that we maybe haven't thought about, or maybe that we have thought about, but we're just sort of in the brainstorming stages.
So the LIFT grants, both of these are in conjunction with and in collaboration with other school districts, which is a very neat thing, really. They're interacting with students from other schools and sort of getting to know others, which is a good thing. I think you brought up a good point, Brian. We're a pretty big school district, and like you mentioned, I don't know that we'd have the critical mass, the number of students to run, say, a Project Lead the Way course on our own, but when we work together with our neighbors and we have some funding that's provided to do that, we're able to make it work. And I really like what you said about these kids are, especially in the engineering, they have an idea of where they want to go. Aviation, personally, is something I wish I would have had that opportunity in high school. So I really, I guess I'm a little bit jealous of those students and happy for them, obviously, too. But really, really neat opportunities. And so the students that are doing the aviation part of it, they're not getting credit. They're basically volunteering their time because of an interest in aviation.
They are, and they're volunteering their time, but they're also they're investing
Right.
in their future, because one of the things, and we've had this conversation in our house, yeah, it's a Saturday morning, but you're gaining some experience and logging some flight hours in that flight logbook that you're going to have
Yeah.
to someday get your private license, to someday then get that next step, an instrument rating, and the FAA has these various stages all laid out. And if you want to be a pilot, you have to go through them. And so that's where you see the sort of return on your investment. In terms of, at least that's the message we've had at our house of, you got to get up on a Saturday morning and get to class. But Saturday, I know, get up, let's go.
Yeah, I would imagine that's tough, but in the same sense, once you get there and get involved, it's probably
Yeah.
pretty exciting. Do you envision, Brian, these opportunities continuing into the future? I mean, you've referenced sort of the seed money, and how do we make it sustainable, or can it be sustainable in the future?
I think it can, but it has to create a different way of thinking. And it's been good to be able to go and work with those other school administrators. And in some ways, it's tearing down maybe some of those fences or walls that we've, our borders within our school districts of trying to retain our kids, and it's sharing. And so I'll go back to the project Lead the Way. At Lakeview, they have, I think, 4 courses, and that's not all of the project Lead the Way. So maybe there's an opportunity someday in Marshall for us to start that,
Sure.
and when kids get ready to take those classes. So maybe we start to see this sort of free exchange of students, and almost maybe what existed many years ago when high schools had, in larger cities, they had schools that would sort of specialize in different areas, and I wonder if the pendulum isn't swinging back, and maybe that's what it might look like someday, but be more technology driven.
And really, not too long ago, we had interactive television courses in
Yeah.
a lot of school districts where, same thing, Marshall might host a Spanish 3 class or whatever, and then there would be students from 3 or 4 other districts, again, because of basically sharing resources
Right.
and not being able to do it on our own or whatever. You've kind of touched on this a little bit, Brian, but let's kind of finish up with 2 things. One, any specific stories or feedback that you've heard from any of the students? And then 2, you wanted to talk a little bit about the 10th grade career fair that happens,
Sure.
and how that is aligned with really career readiness as well.
I think as far as those stories, I think they're being written now with regards to our project Lead the Way, our engineering, because it's in year 1, our aviation opportunity, but those are where you plant the seed and sort of allow it to grow. So those stories are being written right now, whereas we talked earlier with CNA and the welding, we've got some stories out there now. So it's going to be fun to watch these students and how things progress and how this will impact their career. And for some it will, for some it may not, but it'll at least help them get some insight into maybe an offshoot of another career-related field because they had this opportunity. And so this doesn't just start in the high school in grades 11, 12. We've talked earlier about middle school. One big thing that I think has just been fantastic for our region is through the Southwest West Central Service Cooperative 10th grade career fair held here at SMSU. Happens every fall in October, and they do it at SMSU on one day. They do it at Minnesota West Technical and Community College in Worthington on the next. So we're really trying to hit the whole Southwest region. And they bring all these sophomores together into it's about a 3.5 hour session, and they do some career insight into what's available. But the big part is a career expo that's full of just hands-on exhibits and covers all sorts of opportunities, everything from medical to manufacturing, law enforcement, and you just get all. Department of Transportation brings their big trucks out, and so it's just this hands-on event to kind of get kids really excited about their future. Because in about 10th grade, kids kind of start getting tired of school. And so it's another way just to help them start thinking about what their future will be, what's available, try some things out. So many of our kids are influenced by what they hear from home, and that's maybe the only career they have. And so they get to this and they can maybe see something new, and it might create a spark. And then they can pursue that throughout their high school career, at least start to look into it further. It's a great event.
So Brian Jones and I and Chad Pederson have been talking about career readiness and career pathways, and we shared some information about how even in 7th and 8th grade, our middle school, junior high students are starting to look into and learn about careers. We have the career fair, like Brian talked about, through the Southwest West Central Service Co-op in 10th grade. Certainly classes in between there, variety of them, and then some really incredible opportunities when these students get to be in 11th and 12th grade, including some new ones. Like you did a very nice job, Brian, of saying those stories are kind of being written now because it's the first year, and it will be interesting to see the result of LIFT and the aviation opportunities like we've seen with our CNA and our welding and the successes that students who've been a part of those have been. So thank you everybody for watching. Brian, thank you for being here and sharing information. And if parents or community members have any interest in something like this or have questions, feel free to reach out to Brian or myself, and we'll certainly do our best to answer them. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day, and thanks again for watching.